we go. Alright, so they begin with a mini turbo to get down the straightaway, and then going around, you want to try to get a little bit tighter to the right side, but still missing the moles while you charge another mini turbo. So one big thing about the track is that the moles are completely random. Obviously you don't want to go over any of the holes that you can, but even if you do, you have a chance that one is not going to pop up unless you are on PR pace. So Beck in the lead, 29.43 to Dan's 70 there. So just a small amount of lead, not too big, because this is such a short track. It can be that lead can carry him all the way to the end, but because of how volatile the driving can be with the uneven ground, any one mistake can bring it back. Abney holding the lead, 29.38 to Dan's 29.79, so it looks like he is quite ahead at this point. Dan just having some issues getting over the uneven ground, as I normally do as well. Both players taking it inside the mole. And Beck will take it 128.19 to 128.99. So as you can see, that was still within 0.8. So even though Abney had the lead on that, that is still very good times. Alright, and it is now Dan's pick up next, and he chooses Banshee Boardwalk. A couple days late for a very spooky track, and it is light out, so I imagine just turn off the lights and put the blackout shades, and then we'll be back. And both players are ready, so we will count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I had talk lag. All right. Let me sync those back up here. Alright, so this is a very tough track to get good at, in my opinion. It features some fencing that you can kind of take it easy on. However, let me just pause this a little bit. There we go. Alright, much better. Anyways, this track is really tough, very technical, because whenever you're doing straight stretch mini turbos down the straightaways, it's really tough when you're newer to keep the cart straight, so you end up, overturning, hitting the wall, or in some cases, in some parts, there is no fencing area, and you just go right down into the drink. Especially at this, at that Z turn right there. So both players do the drop mushroom, which is, in my opinion, way tougher to do. I usually wait for the last 180 at the end of the turn, just because when you drop down, you can bounce and it can really mess up your angle. But both these players, being where they are, they make it look effortless. 41.88. Beck trailing with the 42.03. It looks like this was a good pick for Dan versus Abney. It looks like he's pulling ahead just a bit. The one great thing about commentating a top 10 player match, that there's really not that many mistakes that they make. Maybe a couple wall bumps maybe. Nothing major as far as Division 1 versus all of the other divisions. And Dan pulls ahead, 205.67. Abney trailing 205.93. So each player taking their respective picks. Very good to see. Alright, and that brings it 1-1. Mano a mano. Abney is up next for the next pick. And he has chosen Royal Raceway. A little bit of a longer track. Another very technical. There's like several places where you can lose a major amount of time. And both players are ready, so we will count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. There we go. Alright, so you begin with a straight stretch mini turbo right out the gate. Make a couple more mini turbos coming around, and this is the make it or break it moment, is how quickly you can get around that corner. Both players having a fantastic jump around the 180. A lot of times you can, depending on the angle, get caught on it or not hop across it very well, which loses a massive amount of time, especially given, both players looking like they missed a mini turbo here, so I think Dan is going to pull ahead just a smidge. And of course, doing the mini turbo over that arrow booster is actually faster than the booster itself, so while you're going over it, you just charge a mini turbo. Both players having very good angles coming through. Dan getting a little bit of an unlucky bounce, which is another seemingly random time loss. So he does fall behind 0.18, just barely. And yeah, the bounce can be really brutal when you're on a fantastic run and then you just bounce, just eats all of your speed, basically, all of your momentum. Both players having a fantastic 180 jump on lap 2. I wish I could be that good. Alright. And for that mushroom, you basically just want to wait until you're almost past that wall, and then you just whip the cart around with that. Looks like Abney's going to land first. Ooh, Abney with the bounce this time. I think they both bounced after hitting the grass. So Abney will pull ahead 57.45 to the 71. So he's about a half second ahead at this point. Just a bad jump right here would do it. Still both consistently getting through. Abney still pulling ahead just a little bit. Both having good mushroom cuts. Abney just that slight lead. Dan hitting the wall to getting the second ramp mini turbo out. Those are another set of crucial mini turbos that you don't think it makes a huge difference, but man, does it. Going deep, both players not bouncing this time, so Abney will secure the win. 252.93 to 253.67. Alright, and each player has won their respective picks. Dan has chosen Choco Mountain, another highly technical level. Both players are ready, so I will count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Yes, both of these players are very, very good at this game. So even though you can kind of see one player pull ahead of each other, both of those times are so good. I'm going to pause Dan here. There we go. Alright, so this one highly technical. Oh, Abney having a little trouble getting around. He's actually going to, both of these players are going to save the mushroom. You'll see some people shroom around that second turn to get back. Abney hit the wall a little bit, so Dan is actually pulled ahead. It'll be interesting to see at what point they use it. It might be the last turn here. Abney bonking into the fence is going to lose some more time here. So they do like the fast lap around one of these final turns. It's a very good spot to use it instead of the big turnaround at the beginning. And then you use a mushroom right at the beginning to hang right. Dan pulling ahead considerably. He's gonna take some mistakes here. Dan hitting the wall, it will shoot him out a little bit. But Abney hitting the wall also actually slowed him down much more. So Dan's going to make it over this hill before him. It's starting to look like Dan's race to lose at this point, as long as he just hangs tight. Dan getting good hills. Abney also getting good hills too. 39.22 to 39.25. So it looks like they had almost the same, but Dan is still quite a bit ahead. Good hills means that on those last triple hills at the end of the level, you jump over the first one and then ride the back of the second into the third. Whereas bad hills means you hit the tops of each respective hill, which actually does lose quite a bit of time. Abney having some trouble getting around the fencing area. It's going to slow him down considerably. Bouncing into the wall. He's going to get around the last corner. Dan jumping, getting bad hills. Abney getting the good hills at the end. 158.09 to 159.50. Nice job. Each player holding their respective picks. So you can tell that they definitely did their homework and really know where they can take each other's points here. Alright, so that brings it to 2-2. So we are tied up for the first set here. Back and forth. Let's see. It's going to make for a very interesting second set when they can't repeat these strong picks. Abney has chosen Luigi Raceway, and both players are ready, so I'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. No worries, Sleepy Mario. Same here, actually. I'm going to pause Abney here. Alright. Hey Brad, how's it going? Alright, so Dan having some issues getting into the second mini turbo down that straight stretch. So Abney is going to pull just a little bit ahead. This is a very, very technical track. Not in that there's anything really interesting about it necessarily, but even small errors will cause you a lot of time here. This is a track where if you look at the rankings, you will actually see that all of the times are very bunched up. So that was the one mushroom coming around the last turn. And what you want to do is when the mushroom runs out, you're charging a mini turbo. And you want to hit the wall at the same time as the mushroom runs out, and you'll actually get a what we call a mystery boost, because you get a little extra speed to get off of the grass area. It does save a really ridiculous amount of time randomly. So as long as you time it right, you can get that mystery boost. It looks like Abney is just a smidge ahead. Dan had in the first lap run into the wall a little bit. Just more than you want. You do want to hit the wall just a little bit. It doesn't matter if you bounce out a little bit, but if you hug the wall, it's going to slow you down. Abney just getting just a little bit ahead, so it looks like as long as he doesn't make any major mistake, he will secure the win on this one. There's still plenty of lap to go. And on the second lap, you notice that they did 2 shroom strat, so instead of doing the mystery boost 3 in a row, which is doable, but unlikely, especially in a one-try scenario. Dan hitting the wall, looks like he will fall behind. But the 2 shroom is the way to go. It'll get you all the way back to the grass. Alright, and Abney coming across 158.54 to 159.84. So Abney winning his own pick once again, back and forth, back and forth. Alright, so 3-2. It's looking like it's going to go all the way to 7 races on this one. Dan has chosen Sherbet Land. Both players are ready, so we will count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this is somewhat of a chaotic track, only if you get off the penguin cycles. So if you're a little bit faster, you're a little bit slower, and you don't know where you're going or need to be, there's penguins that come around the corner and will take you out in the cave, as we'll see. Alright, so getting around these first couple turns is very risky. You want to risk going over the water by charging a mini turbo and hopping over, basically cutting as much as you can. Dan had a little trouble at the beginning there. He hit the corner of the wall, which really, once you get off the angle, you have to take it a little bit safer. And then, as you can see, depending on how fast or slowly you make it to that penguin coming around the corner, you have to reposition where you do that mushroom. You can go inside of the penguin or outside. So Abney is going to pull ahead with the 39.39 to 39.77. So Dan's going to need to go a little bit more aggressive. Abney taking it very aggressive on that one. Dan just a little less so, but still very aggressive. Hey, what's up, Brad? Hope you're doing well. And Abney will make it into the cave first. And the guardians of the cave, depending on how fast or slow you are, you just have to lead, depending on where the penguins are, whether you're going to go outside or inside of those. So Dan not making very many mistakes, but Abney is going to pull ahead. 38.92 to 39.15, so he is quite a bit ways ahead. It's going to take something like falling into the water. Not here, though. Both players having a great jump there. Oh, I actually didn't catch that. When did Abney use his last mushroom? He must have accidentally hit it, as he sometimes does. So regardless of that, he will pull into the lead here, and he's going to take the first set, 157.55 to 157.79. Nice work, Abney. Didn't even need that mushroom. Oh, he accidentally shroomed on lap 1. Alright, and that brings 4 tracks to 2. Abney taking the set, which means that Dan will be first up on picking a map in set 2. And he chooses Mario Raceway as the first pick of the next set. Essentially, they can't pick any of the maps that they have chosen in set 1, but those picks will reset every other set. So after this set, they'll be able to have all of their picks once again. And both players are ready, so I count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And just again, once again for a reminder, this is a best 3 out of 5 sets. So they could potentially go to 7 races each, but they only need the best 4 out of 7 races to win the set. Alright, so this is a very, very short track. You have to basically aggressively mini turbo around every corner, and then you also want to do what's called the mushroom cut, which is hopping in through between the piranha plant and the mushroom. Both players having a fantastic time getting through. You can bounce off of the piranha plant, and you can bounce in any direction inside of the wall. You can bounce and just spin out, which is not ideal. Sometimes you can kind of bounce back in between there and just not have a clean cut, but still get through. So both players still are neck and neck through to the mushroom cut on lap 2. Both players taking the inside. Both players getting through. But it's almost identical. But Dan hits the piranha plant, so he spins out, and Abney will take a massive lead at this point. Yeah, the spin out, it not only knocks you backwards, but also keeps you from accelerating for a couple seconds. So Abney has a commanding lead at this point due to that. The biggest chance, he actually is going to go safe. Not going to risk hitting the piranha plant and sullying the win here. So he is actually going to pull ahead on Dan's pick here. So now he gets to pick the next track. And Abney takes it 129.50 to 131.25. So that's not a typical spot to see somebody hit a piranha plant. Usually you see it during the mushroom cut. He just had the bad angle and just went straight in like I would. Alright, so Abney up 1, and Abney has actually chosen to take us back to Sherbet Land. So we're going to see those penguins once again. Both players are ready, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, it looks like we are still in sync. Let me double check. There we go. Alright, so we'll see if on the second try here, if Dan can take Abney. Looks like he's having a much better start than the last time. Last time he had a shallow jump around the water due to not having the right angle. Both players remaining in sync into the first, going to the left of the penguin because they made it in time. If you are a little bit slow, there's no way that you can take the inside because the penguin's in a bad spot. So it is risky, but as long as you know that you made it fast enough, you can confidently do so. 39.40 to 39.61. Dan had hit a wall a little bit, but Abney just falling just a little bit short. Both players taking a very aggressive jump. Sometimes when you take it too aggressively, you can hit R and then you not even jump at all. And then you just run right into the water. Dan looks like he is pulling ahead just slightly, exiting the cave there. Yeah, we'll see if Abney can hold on to the mushroom for the right spot. 38.99 to 39.04. Dan will pull ahead by 0.05. So he has a bit of a lead here. Dan taking a very aggressive jump over the water. Dan makes it into the cave. No problems there. Hitting the final shroom, going just outside of the of that last, well, I won't say last penguin because you never know. Looks like Dan's gonna cross first. Gonna make it with the 157.31 to 157.62. Very nicely done. Both players taking the other player's picks through this one, so we're kind of seeing the opposite effect from set 1. Alright, and it brings it 1-1. The next pick, Dan has chosen Koopa Troopa Beach. Both players are ready, and we'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this will be a very interesting sight to see. There's a lot of spots to mess up. One of the spots, especially for me, you probably won't see this, but both the players are going to do a mini turbo off of the ramp into the cave, which is okay in a non-shortcut scenario as it was built into the game. Let me just slow this down real quick. There we go. But you have to have a very specific angle to mini turbo off of the ramp. A lot of times, for a newer player like myself, you just have to take a like very deep angle. Both players making it in. It looks like Abney was not able to charge the mini turbo, so Dan will pull ahead just barely. It does make a huge difference. So even though it is quite risky, you'd save a lot of time. 32.26 to 32.43. So you can kind of see what the difference of a mini turbo is, because they pretty much had about the same performance otherwise. So you want to slide very aggressively to the left and aim the mini turbo around that mountain area. Dan going on the inside of the palm trees. Kind of looks like he's kind of off on the angle. Both players getting the mini turbo into the cave there. So very nice adjustment. I would not be able to do that. So you can kind of see Dan having some trouble getting the angle for the mini turbo. 32.27 to 32.34. He actually does pull ahead, just bit by bit on this pick. But yeah, you just want to hug the wall here and charge up a few mini turbos to get around. Going wider can put you into a spot where there's uneven ground, so very nice. Both players making it in. Abney not getting the mini turbo, so Dan is going to get around just a little bit faster. Dan is going to come across for the 136.44. Abney with the 136.98. Dan is going to pull ahead. Alright, so 2-1. Abney has chosen Calamari Desert, and both players are ready. We will count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so one big thing about this track is that it features a train, which is on a set cycle, so you need to make it over 2 spots in order to stay either ahead or behind the train, so each player knows their respective strat. Dan going with the first shroom over the hills. Abney is going to save it. So Dan is going to make it into the dirt area here a little bit quicker. So Abney did save it for this spot, very strong. Looks like Abney has pulled ahead just a little bit. Doing the hill hops with the mini turbos. So being in the same spot, they're going to have almost the same cycle. It looks like Dan is trailing behind by a second. Both of them are going to opt to do the hill hopping around. Abney making it across. Dan also making it across before the train. Very tight window to get through for both of those. This is another track where between the spots where the railroad tracks are, there's no wall. It's a very narrow road, so you have to charge up some straight stretch mini turbos and try your best not to go into the dirt area rather, because you lose a lot of time. Pretty much making it that you would have gone a little bit faster by not doing that. So that was a much tighter lap for both of them. Abney pulling ahead just a little bit, so now they've timed it so that they're gonna just catch the end of that train and then still have plenty of time to make it across. Dan having a little trouble getting around that corner. So he is gonna stay just a little bit behind. So you use those 2 mushrooms to get all the way across to still time it so that you didn't make it to the train too soon or too late on the other laps. So Abney is going to pull ahead by over a second, 2:05.28 to 2:06.62, and that will tie it up for the second set. All right, 2-2, and we are going to Yoshi Valley. This is a very, I won't say technical track, but it has some plenty of places where you can mess up, namely the spinies. They are on a cycle, so as long as you are consistent enough making it to the 3rd lap, you know kind of where the gaps are, and a couple tricks to kind of stay inbounds even if you hit a spiny. Both players are ready, so we'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. That's essentially it, Kyle. Don't fall. Because that loses, gosh, like 10 seconds at least. So both players doing an AB spin start to angle the first shroom to get across the grass area. Both players, there's a huge gap at the first lap. Looks like Dan is pulling ahead, having a little bit cleaner time getting the mini turbos around the first set of spinies there. Or should I say the second set of spinies. So Dan's going to pull ahead just barely in the first lap here, but the first lap is not one that you really have to worry about. Second lap, not even so much as well. It's just that 3rd lap. The spinies get really aggressive. They're almost like fanned out at that point. It's really tough to gauge where you're supposed to come through. So both players getting through the first set of spinies, no problem. Going to the left, Abney hitting the wall, it's going to take a lot of his momentum. So Dan's going to pull ahead just a little bit more again. So this is where it gets real, however. Like I said, those spinies are in really tough spots, 34 to 35 here. Oh wow, both players finding the gap. Abney hitting a spiny as it kind of closed the gap on the first and second on that second set of spinies. So Dan has pulled across, Abney clipping through the fence, still making it in and falling off all the way down to the bottom. Dan is going to come across first, and he comes through with a 143.80. Nicely done. Abney is going to trail behind. And he pulls through 158.96. Dan pulling ahead in the second set here. The next one that he takes will take the set as well, possibly tying the sets up here. But it is Abney's pick, so he does have potentially a joker pick once per match. So that's for the entire match here. Each player does get a map to choose as shortcut. Abney is the #1 shortcut player, and any shortcut track is going to be in his favor, regardless of who picks it. And We are going to Rainbow Road. In an attempt to ice the competition, we're going to take a very, very, very long break and watch the colors roll by. So if you got the Abney Road, now is the time. Both players are ready, so let's start it immediately. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this is not only the longest track in Mario Kart 64, but the longest track in all of Mario Kart series as a whole. So they start off with a mini turbo and then try to straighten out, and then you want to slow down right away, which is counterintuitive naturally, but we have, rather the community found out that staying on the road instead of hopping all the way down is actually faster. Falling down does lose a considerable amount of time, so doing it 3 times in a row, 3 laps after already driving, 1 lap that is fast, that is longer than some maps in their entirety, can be a little bit frustrating, but is necessary to get ahead. So it looks like Abney is pulling around just a little bit of a lead. Dan did not have any of the, didn't stay on the ground all the way down. It looked like he bounced. So this is actually a non-shortcut league. So that means that it's all non-shortcut, except each player per match gets 1 pick, 1 joker pick for the entire match. So they can designate any map to be shortcut, that has one anyways. But it's kind of like something that you want to save to really make the difference. So Abney looks like he is pulling quite a ways ahead. So you save the mushroom for that, the part of the road that goes up, because it takes pretty much all of your speed. It's really tough to get up that without a mushroom, regardless. So you want to save it, and you want to angle the cart when you're doing the slide so that you're going pretty much straight, or at least angled out, so that you can charge a mini turbo at the same time. It is really tough to do. Doesn't look like it, but because you're going up uneven ground, it's really easy to either oversteer into the wall or not have a good angle getting up it. So Abney's going to come across 158.12 to Dan's 159.46. Both players not sticking to the ground, so it looks like Dan did lose a little bit more time compared to Abney. Abney did bounce midway. So despite losing both time on both sides, Abney is still maintaining the lead. Abney going to the right of the chain chomp. Very aggressive. Some of the chain chomps, they go all the way to the wall. Others, they don't, and then they turn around midway. Knowing which ones do which is something I still have yet to know. Just because of a long track, you just kind of want to go more aggressively than going around. Otherwise, you just lose a lot of time. Abney still maintaining the lead, getting to the second shroom spot here. So as you can see, when Abney, he kind of sailed a little bit more to the left so he could charge the mini turbo. When you do the hop, sometimes you can go a little bit too far in, like you saw Dan do, so he was too far to the right to get a good angle to charge the mini turbo, and then you just hit the wall. So that is a pretty big time loss in comparison to how long this track is naturally. So that's one of the frustrations, like I said, getting all the way through to the 3rd lap and then making a major mistake is soul crushing, to say the least. So Abney is going to pull through 157.97. Dan trailing behind with his 158.85. So Abney has a few second reach at this point. It's going to take something like a chain chomp hit to really even it up. Yeah, it's really just a testament to how much that hill eats speed. Because even with the shroom, you're just basically just mitigating it. How much it actually allows you to go. You're not really gaining much speed on it. You're more or less just maintaining speed. All right, so barring any major mistake here, Abney's gonna tie it up 3-3, and then Dan's gonna have the pick possibly to take his first set in set 2 here. One thing to note is that Abney's screen started flashing race data cannot be saved for Ghost, because this track is so long that you can't save a Ghost on it unless you use a shortcut, or because Ghosts are based on the amount of inputs that you have. If you drive very straight and don't charge as many mini turbos, the memory pack can save enough data to maintain a Ghost. So you can kind of see how far back some players have that begin to show up. It's just how many more inputs they had than the other person. So that's every turn, every mini turbo, every toggle of the joystick essentially. And Abney is going to come across with the 5:54.15, Dan trailing with the 5:57.15. So a few second difference, literally. And everybody can wake up now. It at least has flashing colors. Alright, so this will be a set point for either person. So 2 sets going into the 7th race, which makes for a long match, most definitely. Dan taking his time to choose, because this is a very crucial pick. Alright, and he has chosen Moo Moo Farm. So we're going back to Molesville. Alright. Abney throwing the Abney champ. Alright, and looks like both players are ready. We'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Alright. So back here, like I said before, the uneven ground makes it really tough to know where to hop and charge mini turbos, because it can mess up your steering and throw you right into some mole patches. So sometimes going a little bit safer can save you. Both players going through, shrooming at the same spot. Looks like Abney's going to pull ahead just barely, 29.40 to 29.48. So he has a commanding 0.08 lead. So just barely, very small differences. So as you play, you kind of know where to hop so that you can charge a mini turbo, so that you don't over or understeer right into some moles. Even if you do, you could get lucky and a mole may not be there, but the likelihood of that increases as you go over more molehills. Abney pulling ahead 59.52 to 29.87, excuse me. So he's just barely ahead. It's going to take one very aggressive mushroom for Dan to pull through. It's a best of 5 sets, so 3 out of 5 will take the match. Dan hitting the mole. Abney will pull through 1:28.18 to Dan 130-66. Very nicely done. Abney takes 2 sets, so potentially the final set coming up here, unless we see, of course, the reverse sweep. And yes, it is best of 7 tracks to take a set, and then best of 5 sets to take the match. That is correct. And the loser of the previous set gets to choose the first match, or the first race rather, of the next set. And Dan has chosen Bowser's Castle. And also another thing to note is that while the players could not pick the same track in the first 2 sets, now all those picks have reset, thus opening it back up for both players. So now they can choose their strongest picks once again, possibly allowing Lunczer to come back with the sets. Both players are ready for Bowser's Castle, and I will count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And yes, if you have your Abney Martys, now is the time. Marty is a thwomp, a big green one in fact, that is in a cage, in a jail cell, in the first room of Bowser's Castle. We don't know why. We just know that he will never escape. So at the beginning, you use the mushroom to get through the grass area, getting through. And one thing to note is that normally in time trials, when you're doing attempts, Abney hit the wall a little bit there, so Dan is going to pull ahead. Normally you have a distraction ghost, so you have a ghost that sits in the corner, and in the chamber where there's a set of thwomps that follow you, instead of following you, it actually just follows your ghost into the corner, and then they're not even there when you go to get through that next set of thwomps. So in the one try league, ghosts are not allowed, so that means that you take a slightly different path to get through, because you don't want to get squished by those, so you have to be very mindful of where they're going to land. This is the room right here. So they do pull ahead, and then they try to get in your way. So both players going to the left. Abney bonking the wall is going to lose a little bit of speed. Both players, Abney hitting the wall again. Dan getting the mini turbo down the stairs, so he's going to pull very far ahead. This was a good pick for Dan to choose in the third set here. And then yes, this is another track where the thwomps are on a cycle, so you more or less know where they're going to be, and if you can go under them at a certain point. And then if you make a mistake, you're not quite sure where that's going to be anymore, so you have to kind of eyeball it. So Dan having a very commanding lead at this point. It's going to take a lava jump for Abney to catch up. And very clean ending from both. Ooh, hitting the wall right at the end, knocking him back a little bit. Dan will still take it 214.80 to Abney 216.07. Very, very good beginning to set 3 here. Dan will pull ahead. And we're going back to Calamari Desert. Abney feeling confident that that will be one that he'll take once again. Both players are ready. We'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And yes, you can follow that link to see the current bracket and standings. We are currently in week 9, just a little bit over halfway with the league before we go to the finals. Alright, both players having a good start. Dan going with the mushroom around the corner. Abney just hill hopping. He's going to save his first mushroom for the after the second set of tracks here. It can be really tough to do that mushroom around the hills because it can kind of bounce you either in or out. So it is a little bit riskier than just hill hopping to get through. Looks like it actually evened up. So they're in about the same spot here, regardless of where they use that first shroom. Dan hitting the fence area, he actually does lose a little bit of time, as it actually took a little bit of speed. 42.01 trailing Abney, about a half second at this point. Both players hill hopping around. Will beat the first track, the first train rather. Yoshi, Toad, and Peach are the fastest characters. They have the exact same stats as far as speed and acceleration go. So they will actually have, there's no bearing on the race itself unless you choose somebody other than them. Toad has a slightly lower weight, but that only counts when doing things like bouncing off other players. It doesn't have anything to do with time trials in particular. So Abney's still pulling ahead here, both players retaining their shrooms. Abney's going to get to the train ending, just getting around. You can see Dan didn't have to go around as much because he was a little bit behind. But the train cycles can be the great equalizer. Dan able to go across just a little bit sooner, using both of the shrooms to get all the way across the dirt patch to the other side. So this was close. Dan was just trailing behind by about a second. And Abney will pull across 2:05.32 to Dan's 2:06.22. And that evens it up 1-1 in set 3. Potentially the last set that we'll see if Abney pulls through. And we're going back to Yoshi Valley. So we'll see what kind of spinies that we can see. Abney fell off in the last one, so he may play it a little bit safer. And I'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Very nice sync. Perfect. Alright, and both players are going to AB spin at the beginning to angle the mini turbo and the mushroom to get across the grass area. Going through is a very wide gap for that first set, and you know to go on the inside between the volcano and the spinies. So lap 1 looking very consistent for both. Dan kind of clipped through the fence area. You can just barely get through the end piece. They're looking like they're on the exact same pace, and they pull through. Abney 34.60 to Dan, pulling just ahead with the 34.42, just barely. And yes, all of those three characters are exactly the same. Both players taking it aggressive through between the first and second spiny on the right, getting through, not hitting the volcano, losing any speed. They're on a very, very, very similar pace here. Looks like Dan is just barely ahead. $34.67 to $34.70. Dan pulls ahead just a little bit more, but lap 3 can be it. Abney needing to hit the wall to get through the gap. Abney hitting the spiny in the same spot as last time. It's going to be Dan Lunczer's race to lose at this point. Abney pulling through, clipping through the end of the fence area. Dan is going to pull ahead, and he will take this one. Very, very good pick. Lunczer pulling through with the 143.61. Abney trailing with 145.75. That pulls up Lunczer 2-1 in this set. And yeah, in this game, there are three weight classes: lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. If I recall correctly, the middleweight class is actually worse than the heavyweight class. Their acceleration is somehow worse. And Abney has chosen to take us back to Luigi Raceway. Both players are ready. We'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. For a breakdown of the speeds and accelerations of each character and weight class, you can find that on taskvideos.org. There's a very, very, very detailed write-up that was done by Drew Weatherton, one of the main taskers of the game. Alright. And yes, I do agree. Luigi Raceway is a good choice. Abney had pulled through a little bit cleaner, because this is a very low variance track. So those minor mistakes that we've seen Dan make do count for a lot. He had hit the wall just a little bit too much last time. We'll see what happens. Now that they've played it once, they can be a lot more consistent going into it. $39.64. Abney just barely trailing by 0.02, $39.66. Both players getting the mystery boost with the first shroom to get back onto the road. Mystery boost is when you charge a mini turbo at the same time as you're going around using that first shroom, and when the shroom wears out, you hit the wall, releasing the mini turbo, and you actually boost across the grass, saving up quite a bit of time. And we'll see both players mini turbo off into the grass and then use 2 shrooms to get back on onto the road, so you can cut all the way across, and then the shrooms just run out just in time for you to get back. Abney pulling ahead a little bit. Looks like he had trouble at the beginning there, so Dan does pull ahead just barely. Having some trouble charging up some mini turbos. Just had just slightly a bad angle. Looks like they're about even at this point. I'm not sure who's gonna win. Looks like Dan is just barely ahead. And yes, he does pull ahead, 158.70 to 158.83. Gosh. All right. Oops. There we go. And Dan, up 3-1 in this set, has chosen Banshee Boardwalk. It was a good pick against Abney in the first set. So this could be the set point. The set race, rather, for Lunczer. Alright, and they are both ready. We'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Abney needs to have perfect driving and beat the next few picks to take this set and the match. But Lunczer does have an advantage on this track. No, this is just 2 players playing separately and streaming the game. During the Virginia meet, what they do is they use an EverDrive 64 with a modded ROM so that you can have every single character as the same, but these players are just using just the natural N64 Kart. But yes, that is a thing, but you see that in tournament play in Virginia, somewhere in the range of July each year. Alright, both players making it through, having a similar shroom, getting through to the end of the lap here. Looks like Dan has just slight lead. He's going to pull through 4181 to 4190 for Abney. So he does have a .09 lead, so very slight differences, but besides that, pretty much driving the same. Couple mini turbos around the Z, doing the drop shroom, neither player bouncing and having a very clean shroom. Oh, Abney missing a mini turbo in the Bats house, so Dan is going to pull ahead very slightly. And Lunczer pulls ahead with 4173 to 4180, just another .07 difference. So despite the slight advantage, any mistake will do it. Lunczer hitting the fence during that straight stretch mini turbo. So both players should be about even. Abney just barely behind on that drop shroom. I actually think that he would have been ahead if he didn't. Abney hitting the wall. It's going to be a huge mistake, so Dan will take set 3 here. And we're going to go into set 4. Lunczer 1, Abney 2. 205.29. Abney trailing with the 206.37. And this was the shortest set so far. The other two going into 7 races. And it'll be Abney's pick for the next set. And he has chosen, of course, Rainbow Road. We're going back to Rainbow Road. So now both players are ready, and we'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Abney wanting to extend out this match as far as he can, choosing Rainbow Road both times, knowing that he had a massive 3-second advantage in the last pick. So bearing that in mind, likely going to take this one as well, unless chain chop hits, bad trans that we'll see in the beginning here. Oops, I think I paused just a little bit too much there. We'll even him out right there. So Abney actually fell all the way down, which is slower than riding the rainbow all the way down. So Dan actually has an early lead. Let me just sync that back up here. There we go, much better. So he does pull ahead just slightly, but this is a very long track. It's basically, what is it, on PAL it's like 6 minutes. On NTSC, which runs 30 frames per second, it's about a little bit of over a 5-minute track, right around there. So there's plenty of spots to make mistakes, miss mini turbos, hit the wall. You know, you always want to be doing these straight stretch mini turbos, but you don't want to do mini turbos too fast in some areas, otherwise you lose speed because you want to be gliding out the mini turbo to get the maximum amount of boost from each one. Both players having a good shroom getting up that spot, charging a mini turbo at the same time, and then making sure that you have a good angle to not hit the wall is very crucial. Abney bouncing off of the fencing area is going to shoot him out just a little bit, so he's not going to be able to get around as quickly. Looks like they're in about the same spot, but I think Dan is barely ahead. Barely ahead. I may be wrong though. When you see two side-by-sides, you can kind of gauge where somebody is on Rainbow Road by what constellation Mario character is spawned on the screen. So you can kind of see the way that the background twists and turns. Looks like Abney's actually ahead on this one. 158.17 to 158.68. So yeah, it's about a half second. Both players will slow down to Tran, the Rainbow Road. Abney bounced out, so losing a little bit of time. And the reason it's called a Tran is because David Tran was the one that discovered that staying connected to the road is actually faster. Thus dubbed the Tran. Oh, both players going to the right, knowing that the chain chomp is going to stop and not go all the way into the wall. Looks like Abney is just pulling ahead just a little bit now. You can see the differences. It's actually kind of a commanding lead at this point. It's probably over a second based on what I'm seeing here. Both players having a good mushroom, getting up through on that second one. And basically charge the mini turbo, and we're still right in the middle of the road, which is perfect to charge a mini turbo and glide through. And don't miss it, there's still one last lap for this entire map. Abney has quite a lead at this point. He's going to pull through with a 157.73 to 158.76, so Dan trailing yet another second. But every time Dan has had a better Tran getting through. Abney has bounced, but it's not going to make up very much time. So Abney still has a commanding lead, so long as chain chomps or bad mushroom. Barring any mistake like that, Abney is set to take this. Which is crazy that you can pretty much almost call it an entire minute and a half before this race is over. Well, on the bright side, as long as this doesn't go into the fifth set, we should not see this race again, as Abney has chosen it for both, and very unlikely that Dan would choose this, knowing that he would have a couple second gap at least. There's no better way to ice the competition than choosing the longest track in all of Mario Kart history thus far. Dan having just a little bit tougher time with the final shroom. Ended up on the right side and bonked the wall. We'll need to go on the inside of the chain chomp. Abney hitting the wall, bouncing out just barely. Abney is going to pull through with the 5:54.16. Dan trailing behind with the 5:56.18. So just about 2 seconds. And Abney is going to take his first pick in set 4. And Lunczer is up next to choose a map. Let's see where he can ice Abney in response to this one. Lunczer jokingly choosing Banshee Boardwalk Joker. And we're going back to Koopa Troopa Beach, and they're ready. And we'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. The joke therein lies that you need a CPU to jump over the finish line in Banshee Boardwalk to land on the other side, skipping the lap entirely. Looks like the sync has maintained. Alright, and we're going back to the beach. Looks like Abney clipped a little bit of the rock wall, so I think that Dan is going to pull ahead just barely. Dan going on the inside of the palm tree there. Both players set up for a good angle to hit the mini turbo into the cave. Very nicely done by both players. And then the shroom around the rock wall. One thing to note is where the tide is each lap. Where they're at, they catch it so that the tide is actually rolling back, which opens up the faster pathway. If you're a little bit slower, you're going to have to go more to the left, because when the tide rolls up, if you're caught in the water, it's going to slow you down considerably. Both players set up for another good angle into the cave. Both players hitting the mini turbo, very nicely done. Maintaining pretty much the same pace. Dan using the shroom just a little bit later than Abney. So once again, lap 2, the tide is receding. They're very, very close, 32.04 to 32.06. Dan just trailing behind 0.02. It's going to just take just minor mini turbo errors or angle errors. They're pretty much on the exact same pace. Both players. Ooh, it looks like Dan got the mini turbo, but he hit the wall just a little bit. It actually will probably make the difference here. It's going to be a photo finish. Let's see. Oh, man. Abney taking it 136.15 to Lunczer's 136.23. Nicely done. It's just awesome times from both of them. I couldn't even achieve that on my best run. And Abney taking it, very strong lead, 2-0. This could be the last set here we see. Because at this point, Dan could only get one more pick. So this is the dreaded 2-0, where Abney holds all the cards. Abney taking us back to Royal Raceway. And I'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. We need an upset right here. Lunczer needs to take this one so that he has at least a point on the board. Otherwise, the next pick could be his last. Both players having a great 180 turn. That is one huge spot to lose a lot of time. Both players have consistently got it every single time. No surprises there. Since we are seeing the number 3 Abney versus the number 7 player, Lunczer. Both players having a very clean first lap. Looks like they're going to land down here at about the same time. Lunczer just barely with the lead. That may be due to unsync. I may have paused one just a little bit too far. Both players not getting the bounce at the end. Yes, Lunczer is trailing 0.2 behind Abney. The 45 versus the 65. Both players having another clean hop over the 180 there. It's going to come down to pretty much luck at this point. Looks like Dan took the shroom just a little bit tighter, but during the charge of the mini turbo over the booster, he hit the wall. So Abney is going to land well ahead at this point. Both players hopping down, no bounce, no time lost there. Abney's going to pull ahead on that lap, 57.45 to Dan's 57.61. So he has just shy of a half a second lead at this point. Both players having another great 180 jump. A place that would lose massive time for other players. They have consistently made it over every single time. Ooh, but Abney kissing the wall at Dan. It looks like he's actually going to pull ahead on this one. Both players charging the mini turbo successfully. It actually looks like Dan's going to land and take this one. That was a big mistake right at the end to have there. Both players not getting the bounce at the end. So Dan is actually going to take this one. This was the upset we were looking for here. 2:53.20. Dan taking it with the 2:52.69. That brings it up, so that now Dan is in a little bit better spot here, and he's choosing to go back to Choco Mountain, the one race that he previously won. So very good picks for both players here. I'll count them down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Last time Abney had some issues hitting the wall, getting some mini turbos around, and Dan did pull ahead. So we'll see what happens this time now that they've had a try at it. Alright, and just like last time, they're gonna save this mushroom instead of mushrooming it at this spot. It sounded like Abney did not hit that mini turbo around that second turn. Players having a very good first lap. Abney using the shroom on what would it be, the final fast lap shroom, but Dan is going to save it. Both players getting good hills. Abney is going to pull ahead just by 0.1, but he is actually down a mushroom at this point, so that actually could be the make it or break it as long as Dan uses it successfully. It looks like they're about even at this point, despite the mushroom difference. So based on that, it looks like Dan is going to pull ahead a little bit. Yep, and then he uses it on the second lap, same spot, so he's going to actually pull ahead going into lap 3. Both players having bad hills. Dan pulls ahead 38.65 to 39.53, actually a considerable lead by Dan at this point. It's going to take a major mistake for Abney to pull back. Very nice driving on the last lap here. So Lunczer is actually going to pull ahead and pull through, tying it up for this set. Lunczer with the 156.89. Abney trailing with the 158.19. Very nice job. And that brings it 2-2 in set 4 here, we could possibly see this go into set 5. Not too many one-try league matches have gone into set 5, so this would be a very interesting one. So we'll see where we go next here. So it looks like Lunczer is anteing up here. He's actually driving so well that his last couple were so close to his PR pace. And Abney is going to take us back again to Moo Moo Farm. A pick that he's previously won both times. And we'll count down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, they both had good hills on lap 1 for Choco Mountain. And then bad hills laps 2 and 3. All right. So now this is the 3rd time that they have played Moo Moo Farm. And we'll see if Lunczer can pull out another upset here and pull ahead. Abney has had either just a slight lead through each one. Last time Lunczer had hit a mole on the last lap, which Abney secured the lead. Pulls ahead 29.48 to 29.46. Dan is actually just barely ahead. Oh, but Lunczer hits a mole. He's going to lose a couple seconds. Wise choice to use the mushroom to get back up to speed. 29.34, trailing the 31.41. So barring any major mistake from Abney, he'll likely take the safe route to get through to the end. Abney hitting the fence, bonks just a little bit of time, but not enough for Lunczer to pull up. Abney going all the way around, going safe. Lunczer going as aggressively as possible, but hitting the fence area. It's going to be 128.79. Lunczer trailing 130.05. All right, and that brings it up 3 tracks to 2. Abney with the lead here, but Lunczer's pick, and he's going to take us back to Mario Raceway. Very, very good pick. Potentially, it'll either be a set and match point for Abney, or Lunczer can tie it up and bring us to the seventh race, potentially to tie up these sets. Both players are ready, and we'll begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So Lunczer had taken the last one. Actually, I take that back. Abney had upset and taken it because Lunczer had hit a piranha plant. So we'll see if we see any of that action in this time. So bearing that in mind, it may actually be in Abney's favor, barring any major mistake. And both players hopping through. This is the first make it or break it through the first mushroom cut here. Both players hopping through. It looks like Abney is pulling ahead, just barely having a better mushroom cut. Oh, but Lunczer hits the wall. He's going to lose probably about a second there. So Abney having the better first lap, 29.38. It's a 30.15, just shy of a whole second loss hitting that wall, having to go around. That is one of the potentials of getting so close to that wall. You have to hit it. Lunczer bouncing out of the mushroom cut off of the piranha plant. He's forced to go around. Abney has a commanding lead at this point. He's going to have one heck of a time losing this one. He pulls through the second lap, 29:59. Lunczer trailing with the 31:13. It's Abney's race to lose at this point. And he will take the safe route going all the way around, knowing what a commanding lead he has. Lunczer going through, but it's not going to be enough. Lunczer tapping the wall coming around. And Abney will take set 4 and the match for tonight. Abney 129.27. Lunczer trailing with the 130.80. Very nice performance from both players. Very exciting to see them go back and forth. Good game to each of them. And that will tie it up for tonight. Alright, so I just want to thank everybody for coming out to watch Mario Kart 64 Time Trials League. We are currently in the 9th week, so just a hair beyond halfway. You can catch us on Speed Gaming when we have players and commentary available. You can catch us every week. Most of the matches are on Saturdays and Sundays, some during the week when there is time. So thank you, everybody. My name is Haddock. I was your commentator for today. Thank you to Abney and Lunczer for playing a very strong match. And we will catch you next time. There is another match later today. Myself versus Smurfy SR. It's interdivisional. He is in the division above me, so we will be streaming it on our respective streams. So thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.